The dropship screamed through Earth's atmosphere, cutting the sky in half with fire. Commander Zaltor stood silently at the head of his strike unit, claws folded behind his back, armored boots braced wide against the vibration. His battle plate, etched with the glyphs of the Krenvari war caste, gleamed with faint violet reflections from the atmosphere's burn. 17 seconds to ground, announced one of the ship's onboard systems in their native tongue. He did not respond. 17 seconds to another war. Another patch of dirt that would resist, scream, die, and then forget itself under the weight of empire. Earth was supposed to be different, strategically vital, but primitive. Its humans were a curious anomaly, emotionally volatile, technologically backward, yet unpredictable. That last part concerned him. The landing gear hit dirt with a mechanical snarl. Doors slid open, and 6 soldiers disembarked with practiced precision. Zaltor stepped into the wet, pine-scented morning of a dying planet. His optic implants scanned the tree-line. No movement. No heat signatures. But his instincts hissed something else. They had landed in what humans once called North America. Rolling hills, forested cover, and long stretches of open field. His mission brief named this region as a resistance pocket. A few scattered survivors, former military types. Nothing the Empire couldn't wipe out with orbital firepower, but Command wanted it done clean. Surgical. Psychological. A swift reminder that no corner of Earth was safe. He didn't care. It was his last campaign before reassignment to High Command. One more successful operation, and he'd never have to trudge through the mud of another planet again. The squad fanned out, sleek and lethal in their battle harnesses, weapons humming with plasma-ready charge. Drones zipped above the canopy. Motion detectors pinged the area. Still nothing. He tapped into the team's neural net. Sweep perimeter. 200-meter arc watched the tree lines. The soldiers moved like phantoms, dispersing in synchronized silence. Birds cried in the distance, a reminder of life still untouched by the Empire's reach. He almost envied them. Then the first shot came. Not the hiss of plasma. Not the scream of orbital bombardment. A crack. Pure, sharp, like the snap of a bone under pressure. The soldier nearest the tree-line crumpled mid-stride. Not flung, dropped. Straight down, as if the ground itself had reached up and taken him. Zaltor's visor lit up. Internal readout. Massive kinetic trauma. Armor penetration. Brain matter loss. Dead. He froze, eyes narrowing. Sniper, he said aloud. Human weapon. Ballistics. That wasn't possible. Human ballistic rifles couldn't pierce Krenvari battleplate. Not without heavy-caliber artillery, and even that had limitations. The squad scattered, breaking sight lines. Trees rustled softly. A breeze swept across the field, carrying the faint scent of cordite and blood. Another shot. Second soldier, down. Through the neck. Clean. Zaltor crouched, analyzing trajectory. Based on impact patterns and spread radius, the shooter was approximately 400 meters northeast. High elevation. Likely ridge line. He marked the position on the squad's HUD. Adjust bearing. Eliminate threat. They moved fast now, aggressive and methodical, pushing toward the marked zone. Still, no visual. No flashes. No sounds beyond the shots themselves. He recalibrated. This wasn't a rookie. This was surgical. The third soldier didn't even make it 10 steps. A round took him through the side, between armor plates, an angle so tight it had to be intentional. Zaltor cursed in his native dialect. This was no mere survivor. Fall back, he ordered. Regroup. I want aerial scans on that ridge now. The squad retreated into deeper cover as reconnaissance drones fed the data back. The images showed nothing. No heat signature. No movement. Not even a thermal pulse. Ghost. Whoever it was, they had cloaked themselves from standard Krenvari scans. That required knowledge of alien sensors, salvaged tech, adaptation, and training. Zaltor replayed the kills in his mind. Placement. Pattern. Delay between shots. She was controlling the battlefield, not reacting to it. He didn't know why he settled on that. Just a hunch, built from the slivers of intel on human resistance fighters. Statistically, it was possible. He had once seen a report about a human female sniper operating alone in the Rockies. Confirmed kills, 23. They called her the Wraith. Could this be her? The next shot answered that question for him. A drone exploded mid-flight. Hit mid-propeller. Impossible shot. He stared at the rising smoke and realized this wasn't just resistance. It was personal. Zaltor knelt behind a fallen log, talons curling into the earth. He activated his comlink. Unit, report status. 5 active. 1 wounded, came the reply. Morale low. Request permission for air support. He hesitated. Air support would destroy the entire area and violate orders. The High Strategist wanted this done with precision and message. Slaughter from the sky wouldn't send the right signal. No. We fight her here. On her terms. Another silence followed. Not doubt, respect. They were bred for war. And now, they had found a worthy opponent. Zaltor rose and moved deeper into the forest. The smell of pine grew sharper. The ground softer. Visibility limited. That was when he saw it. Not a figure. Not a weapon. A corpse. One of his own, stripped of armor, set up in a seated position with the head bowed. Like a puppet waiting for an audience. And on its chest, a message carved into the carapace with what must have been a human blade. 1 word. Leave. He stared. She had killed, skinned, and posed as soldier like a warning sign. Not barbaric. Tactical. Psychological warfare. She was baiting him. He touched the soldier's skin. Still warm. The kill had been recent. He looked up slowly. Trees loomed overhead like silent witnesses. Something shifted behind him. Too late. The shot ripped through his shoulder. He dropped to a knee, growling in pain. The round hadn't penetrated fully, but it had staggered him. That was rare. He rolled, firing blindly into the trees. Nothing. Echoes and smoke. She had relocated before she even pulled the trigger. He clutched his side. Armor compromised. Blood seeped into the moss beneath him. "She's not trying to kill you," said his second-in-command through the comm. He nodded slowly. "She's sending a message." He thought back to the briefing, the psych profiles on human combatants. Fearless. Angry. Adaptive. But this wasn't just about anger. This was a hunt. He activated his visor's long-range scan again, tuning it to detect faint chemical residue. Still nothing. That's when he realized she'd sabotaged the air around her nest, flooded it with microthermal dampeners, possibly from dismantled Krenvari gear. Brilliant. And horrifying. She was becoming one of them, just to kill them better. He stood, forcing his body to move through the pain. "I will find you," he whispered into the forest. A whisper answered back. Not a voice. Not words. Another shot. A tree exploded beside him. Not aimed to kill, but to herd. Drive him into a clearing. Force him into open terrain. He obeyed. Not because he had no choice, but because he was starting to understand. This battle wouldn't be won with firepower. It would be won with understanding. She was testing him, judging him, and she'd already made up her mind. He didn't deserve to leave this planet alive. He broke through the brush into the clearing, and stopped. A small rise, maybe 10 meters across, ringed with felled trees. Shell casings. A torn piece of standard-issue human combat cloth tied to a branch like a flag. A nest. Her last position. Abandoned. She was already gone. He crouched and examined the ground. Footprints, small, deep, deliberate. But no boot treads. Barefoot or soft-soled. She was erasing her own trail. He turned back toward the tree-line and spoke into the calm. "She's not defending a base. She is the base." There was a pause. Then the voice of his lieutenant. "Orders, Commander?" He scanned the horizon. The sun was rising. The birds had gone quiet again. And somewhere, out there in the woods, the sniper was watching. "Spread wide. Keep distance. Do not engage unless you see the shot. And tell command, this planet is not under control. Not yet." As he moved, he felt it again, that cold certainty pressing down in his chest like a weight. He wouldn't be getting off this planet alive. And somehow, that felt right. Lena Cross lay beneath a camouflage net that smelled like dirt and old blood, eyes locked to the scope of her rifle. The early morning light filtered through the trees in broken shards, painting the forest in flickering gold and green. She hadn't moved in over 3 hours. Her heartbeat slowed to 48 beats per minute. Breathing shallow. Trigger hand steady. The weight of the rifle was second nature. It might as well have been part of her skeleton now. She watched the clearing through high-powered glass, the crosshairs resting where she expected the next one to appear, assuming they didn't figure out her new position first. So far, they hadn't. But she didn't get cocky. Cocky got you dead. The kill count sat at 3 confirmed. She suspected she'd hit a 4th. Maybe even wounded the commander. That last shot had been risky, but worth it. She'd seen the way he dropped. Off balance, favoring his left side afterward. If he lived, he'd remember her. Good. She wanted them to remember. Every damn one of them. The Krenvari thought Earth was just another target. They came down in sleek ships with glowing armor and that cold imperial tone in their voices. Like they were already the landlords, and she was just squatting on borrowed ground. But Lena had fought real war. She'd seen it before the sky cracked open and the world went sideways. Afghanistan, Syria, Colombia. Those were battlefields. But this was hers. She adjusted slightly, just enough to relieve pressure on her left elbow without shifting the rifle's alignment. Even a centimeter off could compromise the next shot. She didn't have enough ammunition left to waste any. Her nest was buried under a fallen tree, the inside hollowed out just enough to fit her body and a weapons cache. No scent, no heat trail, no metal reflections. She'd smeared the logs with Krenvari blood weeks ago, knowing their species used chemical scent markers for patrol sweeps. It made her gag, but it worked. Above her, a recon drone buzzed faintly, barely audible. She squinted. Their tech had adapted. Smaller, quieter now. Harder to tag mid-air. But not impossible. She tracked it, waited, exhaled slowly, and squeezed the trigger. The drone burst in a puff of sparks and twisted metal. She ducked immediately, ejected the round, and rolled from the nest into the ferns. Move. Always move. She slithered 30 feet through the underbrush to a secondary position, a flat perch between boulders with a view downrange. She didn't climb. She didn't stand. She moved like the forest had grown her from its roots. Once settled, she took stock. 5 rounds left in the magazine. 6 in the reserve pouch. 1 blade. 2 trip mines. No backup. No reinforcements. Just her and a rifle older than some of the dead satellites still spinning above Earth. The first time she'd seen the aliens, she was stationed at Fort Carson, commanding a sniper unit for perimeter defense. That day ended in fire. The aliens hadn't spoken. They'd landed, killed everything that moved, and left nothing behind but charred bones and burnt rubber. Lena had crawled for 3 miles on a shattered femur just to reach a radio tower. She'd been killing them ever since. She didn't do it for orders anymore. There were no orders. The world government collapsed 8 months ago. Last she heard, the U.S. president had vaporized herself rather than be taken alive. Now, it was just her. And them. She slid her hand over her rifle, tracing the initials carved into the side, LC. A gift from her father, himself a Marine sniper before he drank himself into a slow, angry death. He used to tell her war was ugly but honest. A bullet, he said once, don't lie. It don't flinch. People do. She believed him more with every alien she dropped. Movement caught her eye. Quick, sharp. Not careless. Calculated. The alien commander. She recognized him by the curved crest of his helmet, the way the others moved when he passed. They obeyed him without question. That meant he was dangerous. He paused in the open, just long enough to tempt a shot. She didn't take it. Too obvious. A bait move. He wanted her to reveal herself. She respected that. He was learning. Still, she watched him. The others followed in formation, circling, scanning, adjusting tactics with an efficiency that told her they'd started to understand the threat she posed. That was the problem with surviving too long. You taught the enemy how to kill you better. She lay still for 30 minutes, barely blinking. Then she crawled back toward her original nest, not to use it, but to check the perimeter. One of the tripwires had been triggered and reset. Clever. They hadn't entered, but they were probing. She circled around, taking a wider arc to avoid the old camp entirely. It was burned now. Time to abandon it. She'd done this too many times to count. Kill, move, repeat. Like a ghost. Like a rumor. The last 2 humans she'd spoken to had died screaming in an ambush. After that, she stopped talking to anyone. The silence helped her stay sharp. Besides, what was there to say? As she climbed a narrow ridgeline that overlooked the alien patrol zone, her knee flared in pain. The old injury still throbbed when the cold set in, and the mornings were getting colder. Not that it mattered. Pain was just another kind of focus. She reached a stone ledge and set her rifle down, checked her watch. 4 hours until sundown. That gave her maybe 2 opportunities for a clean shot before light failed. She surveyed the landscape. Pine woods, uneven terrain, limited mobility. Perfect for her, less so for them. Through the scope, she spotted the commander again. He was limping slightly. Yes, her bullet had clipped him. Not fatal, but it made him real. Wounded. Vulnerable. She followed his movement, waiting for the moment. He paused, surveyed the horizon, then turned and looked directly at her. She tensed. He couldn't see her. Couldn't possibly see her. But some part of him knew. Instinct, maybe. Or he was trying to psyche her out. Pine. 2 could play that game. She found a nearby pine, knelt beside it, and carved into the bark with the edge of her blade. Simple alien glyphs, salvaged from the tech she'd dissected months ago. 1 word. She left it in a place only someone searching for her would find. A message, a dare, and a promise. As she slipped back into the underbrush, she knew this wasn't just another skirmish. The commander wasn't like the others. He thought like a hunter. But so did she. By dusk, the air was thicker, the sounds of life dull and distant. Animals had started learning to flee when the soldiers came. Smart. She envied them. A sound cracked through the trees, just a branch, but she turned and aimed anyway. Always better to be wrong and ready. Nothing. Wind. Her mind went still, hyper-focused. Her body, even after weeks of surviving on protein paste and rainwater, felt wired. She remembered something her father said on their last hunting trip before he got too sick to leave the house. You ain't the predator until something bigger wants your blood. Until then, you're just bait with a bite. She hadn't understood then. She did now. Darkness was coming fast. She slid into a final overwatch position. Deep cover, perfect angle on the path leading to the glyph. If he came, he'd walk right into her shot. She waited. And waited. An hour passed. Then, movement. A single figure. No armor. No weapon drawn. Just the commander, exposed, walking slowly toward the tree. She locked onto his chest. Easy shot. Center mass. But she didn't pull the trigger. He stopped beneath the glyph, stared at it, then looked out across the woods. His head turned slightly, almost like he was listening. Then, without a word, he knelt and touched the mark. Lena's finger tightened on the trigger. But something held her back. He wasn't here to fight. He was sending a message. She withdrew, heart pounding. This wasn't how wars worked. Not usually. She moved again, faster this time. Set another trap. A message of her own. An old human trick. She rigged a perimeter of low-yield explosives set to disorient, not kill. Then, she scratched a final glyph into the dirt by the roots of a broken tree. Tomorrow. She retreated into the darkness. Let him find it. This game was far from over. She hadn't come this far to die quietly. And he hadn't come this far to win easily. The hunt had only just begun. Dawn broke in a pale line across the eastern horizon, staining the sky a bruised blue. Commander Zaltor stood at the edge of the glade where the glyph had been carved into the bark. Primitive script, yet unmistakable in its message. He traced it again with a clawed fingertip. Come. She had spoken in their tongue. Crude, but effective. The woman sniper was not merely a killer, she was learning them. He admired that, in a way only warriors understood. Around him, the forest stretched in ominous silence. Birds had long since abandoned these woods. Even the insects, ever resilient, had vanished. It wasn't just war that had driven life away. It was fear. The sniper wasn't just surviving, she was dominating this terrain. Command had underestimated her. He had underestimated her. No longer. He turned back toward his unit. What remained of them? 5 warriors. Once elite, now whittled down, hunted through dense alien woods like prey. 2 bore wounds. 1 limped. All were silent. Not out of fear, but reverence. They knew the game had changed. Zaltor stepped forward. She has drawn first blood. She will draw more. But she is not a god. She is flesh, bone, thought. They nodded. Not because they believed it, but because he said it. That was enough. He motioned them into formation. Today, we end her. The squad fanned out, disappearing into the trees, low and fluid. Zaltor remained alone for a moment longer, eyes locked on the faint trail she'd left. A trail meant to be found. That was the nature of her warfare now. Not ambush, but invitation. He accepted. A kilometer away, Lena watched from her third blind, high in the crook of a dead tree. It groaned beneath her with every shift, bark flaking off like old scabs. She kept her rifle steady, scope sweeping across the underbrush below. She knew he would come. The alien commander was too smart not to. And he was wounded. Wounded things either retreat or charge forward. She had gambled he'd do the latter. So far, she was right. Below, the squad moved with inhuman grace, silent, overlapping arcs of motion, always covering each other, never exposing their backs. She respected their discipline. Too many human soldiers had died because someone flinched at the wrong second. But discipline didn't stop bullets. Her father's words echoed again. Hold your breath. Let your shot break the world clean in half. She adjusted her angle, letting her cheek mold into the rifle's worn stock. Her heartbeat slowed. 5 enemies in formation. 1 commander trailing just behind. She could pick off 2 before they even knew it was happening, but that wasn't the plan. Not yet. She didn't just want to kill them. She wanted them to understand. She waited until the squad stepped into a narrow corridor between 2 moss-choked boulders. Then she activated the mine. The explosion was muffled, small on purpose. Designed to scatter, not destroy. Shrapnel hissed through the air, carving the bark off trees and pinging off armor. 2 aliens dropped, shields flickering erratically. Another cried out, voice modulated by pain. The others leapt for cover. And then she fired. The round cracked through the forest like a thunderclap. One of the fallen twitched once, then stilled. Clean headshot. The other scrambled, dragging a smoking leg behind him. She chambered another round. Fired again. Missed. Damn. She dropped down from the tree just as plasma fire erupted from the tree-line. Blue bolts scorched the canopy, lighting up the dark like a rave from hell. She rolled behind a stump, slapped a reload into the rifle, and moved low through the ferns. They were angry now. Good. Anger made them careless. She circled left, flanking wide until she found a ridge overlooking their regrouping zone. Through the scope, she saw the commander issuing orders, his body still upright despite the dark stain on his side. He wasn't healing. Whatever their tech was, it had limits. She considered taking the shot, ending it right there. But something held her back. Too easy. She moved again, deeper into the forest, toward the final stand site. She had prepared it for days, maybe weeks. A canyon cut through bedrock, barely 2 meters wide at the floor, widening toward the top like a jagged throat. It funneled any advancing force into a kill zone, high ground on both sides. She reached the ridge, breath fogging faintly now. The air had grown cold. Her hands didn't shake, but her bones ached. She lay prone along the upper edge and watched the approach through scope. No movement yet. She set 2 more traps. A pressure mine under loose leaves. A tripwire strung at ankle height, nearly invisible. Then she settled in and waited. Minutes passed. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of char and metal. A leaf tumbled past her eye, and for a second, she thought about her sister. Dead now. Killed in one of the first wave attacks on the eastern seaboard. Lena hadn't cried. Not because she didn't care. Because there was no time for tears when the world was ending. Then, footsteps. Slow. Heavy. The first soldier emerged into the canyon mouth, weapon sweeping. He was cautious now. Smart. She didn't fire. Another followed. Then another. For in total, no sign of the fifth. No commander. Where was he? She scanned left, then right. Nothing. They moved into the canyon. One stepped on the pressure plate. The mine flared, sending him spinning backward, armor smoking. The others scrambled for cover, but there wasn't any. She opened fire. First round dropped the rear soldier, back of the neck. Second round caught another in the thigh. He screamed, fell, and was silenced with a third shot to the chest. Then a blur moved at the edge of her vision. She twisted. The commander. He had flanked her. He moved fast, too fast, and lunged. She fired blind. The shot grazed his shoulder, but he crashed into her, sending them both sprawling over the ridge. They tumbled hard, smashing through branches and bramble until they landed with a brutal crunch on the canyon floor. Her rifle was gone. She reached for the blade on her thigh. He kicked it away. They stared at each other, chest to chest, breath steaming in the air. Then he spoke. "Why do you fight?" His voice was gravel and thunder. Not mechanical. Not synthetic. A voice with weight. Real. She bared her teeth. "Why do you invade?" He tilted his head slightly. "Because we must. You would do the same." She shoved against him, elbow to his throat, but he didn't budge. "Then you should have killed me earlier," she spat. "I didn't want to," he said. That threw her. He looked tired. Not physically. Soul-tired. As if this war, for all its precision, had broken something in him too. She punched him hard across the jaw. It snapped his head sideways. "Too late for regret," she hissed. He nodded, slowly, blood trickling from his mouth. Then they fought. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't trained. It was survival, brutal and blind. She bit. He clawed. She jabbed her knee into his wound, and he roared in pain. But she got the upper hand. Somehow, she ended up atop him, the stolen blade in hand, pressed to his throat. "End it," he growled. She stared at him. Saw not a monster, but a mirror. A reflection of what war made all of them. She drew back her hand. Then a blast shook the canyon. She threw herself aside as a dropship roared overhead, floodlights igniting the trees like a second sunrise. More were coming. She looked at him. He looked at her. And then, he tossed her the blade. She caught it, stunned. He rose slowly, limping, hand to his ribs. "Go." She didn't move. "You're letting me go?" she asked. "No," he said. I'm giving you a head start." Then he turned his back. Lena vanished into the woods seconds later, heart pounding, blood slick on her skin, mind racing. This wasn't over. But the rules had changed. Dawn's first light seeped through the canopy in thin, hesitant streaks, glinting off damp leaves and broken branches. Lena crouched on a fallen log at the top of the ravine, rifle nestled in her arms like an extension of her own body. Her breathing was steady, controlled, each inhale and exhale measured against the hammer's half-cock. Today would settle everything. No more cat and mouse. No more traps or feints. One bullet, one war. Below, the canyon floor lay quiet but for the gentle hiss of morning mist rising from the rocks. The 2 pressure mines she'd hidden the night before were armed and waiting, but her plan hinged on a single shot, not explosives. She had 6 rounds left, 1 for him, 5 for the rest. She had no intention of wasting ammunition. A low rumble reached her ears, distant at first, then closer. The dropship she destroyed days ago had been replaced by a new shuttle, heavy and angular, disgorging soldiers in pairs. 4 of them emerged, armored in the same violet-hued plating she'd learned to hate. They moved with mechanical precision, scanning the walls of the ravine. But no commander walked with them. He would come alone. She tracked their progress through the scope, memorizing each silhouette. The nearest stepped on a mine, and the device spat a spray of shrapnel into his midsection. He dropped with a dull thud. The others froze, weapons raised. Perfect. She squeezed off 2 rapid shots, each exploding through helmet visors with a satisfying crack. The remaining pair dove for cover, plasma whirring from their rifles. She didn't bother aiming. 15 years of sniper training meant instinct would serve. She fired blind over the lip of the ravine, and heard one of them scream as she clipped his thigh. Now it was down to her and him. She waited. Minutes felt like hours. The mist thickened, swirling in ghostly wisps around the stone. She felt his presence before she heard him, a subtle shift in the light, a ripple in the air. Commander Zaltor, his armor scorched and dented, limped into view carrying only a blade and a plasma pistol dangling uselessly by his side. The wound she'd inflicted days ago had turned into a gash that ran the length of his side, but he stood with unbroken posture and eyes that glowed faintly through his helmet slit. Her heart hammered. She steadied the rifle again, aligning the crosshairs with the gap between his left shoulder and the broken armor plates. That was her window. He paused beneath her perch, head tilted upward as if feeling for the sun. For a moment, she saw him not as an alien invader but as a soldier, tired, hurt, still proud. She hesitated, finger hovering over the trigger. In that instant, his helmet crest flicked toward her. She felt the weight of his gaze though he could not see her. It was a challenge, and an acceptance. He knew who she was. He came anyway. She exhaled, gently, and squeezed. The shot cracked through the morning air like a thunderclap. The round tore through the visor, blasting metal flakes and fogged glass outward. He reeled back, free hand slamming against his wound, blade clattering to the stone floor. Blood fountained from the breach, red against violet armor. He looked down at the stain spreading across his chest, blinked once, then straightened. He didn't collapse. He fell to one knee, blade raised in salute. She watched, breath caught, as he sank fully to the ground and laid the blade across his lap. The world seemed to hush around her, the insects and birds and wind all fading. She expected him to die screaming, but instead his helmet tilted back on its hinges, revealing a visage drawn with pain but not fear. He spoke in broken common, the words ragged but clear. "You have proven yourselves worthy." She slid from the log, half dragging herself down the slope on one elbow. Every muscle in her body quivered with exhaustion and adrenaline. She reached him at the canyon floor, rifle forgotten for now. He lay gazing up at the rising sun, chest heaving in slow, shallow breaths. "Is it over?" she asked, voice raw. He silenced her with a gesture. His free hand rose to his helmet, lifting it fully free. Beneath, a face both alien and achingly familiar in its humanity. High cheekbones, dark-ridged brow, eyes the color of bruised storm clouds. He offered a crooked, tired smile. "This is only the beginning," he said. Without my command, the fleet will withdraw. Your bravery saved your world. She stared. She had wanted revenge, glory, closure, any end to the nightmare. But now, watching him slip away, she felt something else, the weight of a shared cost. Both had lost too much. His hand fell away. He closed his eyes, and she thought he might pass into history then. But instead he spoke again, voice barely above a whisper, "Let us honor those who died." She nodded, tears biting her eyes. He exhaled his last breath. Then nothing but silence, the kind that presses against the eardrums until every heartbeat rings loud. Lena crossed herself, not out of faith, but out of respect. She reached down, retrieved the blade, and gently laid it across his chest. No triumphant gesture. No victory pose. Just an acknowledgement that two soldiers had met on equal ground, each doing what they believed necessary. Behind her, the survivors of her makeshift firing line emerged from the trees, ragged, wary, but alive. They flinched on seeing her kneel beside the alien commander's body. She turned to them, voice steady despite the tears. "Gather what you can. We leave at dawn." They obeyed, moving to scavenge his armor plating and secure the site. Lena lingered a moment longer, tracing the curved etchings on his blade, then rose and shouldered her rifle. The sun had climbed higher, burning away the mist. A new day had begun. She took one final look at the fallen warrior, her enemy who had become something more, and whispered into the empty air, "This planet is ours." As she turned away, the canyon seemed less a tomb and more a crucible, where humanity's spirit had been tested and found unbreakable. She climbed the ravine's wall with a slow determination, every step a promise that Earth's defenders would stand ready, bullet in chamber, heart in hand, against any threat that dared return. One bullet had ended one war. But 1,000 more battles lay ahead, and Lena Cross would be waiting.